I can promise you this. Not many feel anything for you. You are dead to me and to the world. After today, you are just a number in a prison system until the day you die. 5 years ago, you ended your own life. Sorry, I'm going to repeat this. 5 years ago, you ended your own life, but didn't have the balls to actually kill yourself. Instead, you killed my dad, who had everything to live for. You are no value to anyone. You are worthless to everyone, including yourself. You've earned a life behind bars. You'll never step a foot of freedom again. Prison is your hell for now until you can actually go to hell. I do want to say one thing about forgiveness. Forgiveness is given to those who deserve it. Most who want it act like they do. They ask for it, and if they pray and surrender their sins to our Lord and Savior, it is given. I suggest you look into how that works. You'll have plenty of time. As for me, I'll live my life outside of prison, happy knowing my Father is in heaven, and I'll get to see him again when my time comes. To the prosecution team, judge, and jury, I thank you for your hard work and dedication in seeking justice. Your verdict and sentence was exactly what I had hoped for. Thank you. If the death penalty had meant a painful death, like you sentenced my father, your own father, and your uncle, I'd probably want that. But how I see it, this man didn't deserve to be put to sleep like an animal that I care about. He deserves everything he has coming to him, and you'll have plenty of time to think about that as you rot in prison. To the defense team, I don't know how you do your jobs and sleep at night. It must be because it pays so well to be a terrible actor putting on theatrics in front of people like my family and I who are truly hurting. What you do is disrespectful to the victims and their families. What you do hurts people. It's shameful, and I hope someday you realize that you are both just the devil's advocates. I love you, Dad. I am so proud of the hero you were in life and death. You are my hero, and I will honor your legacy always. Brandon, go enjoy your cage and some top ramen. I'm going to enjoy a beer and a nice steak dinner with my family and friends and the freedom that I have earned with my life and the way I live it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Leslie Harvey.
All right, ma'am, if you could remove your mask and give us your first and last name, spelling both, please, for the record.
My name is Leslie Harvey, Leslie Harvey.
Thank you.
Thank you. This morning, my dad's sister can't be here with us. She sustained 2 traumatic injuries during the trial. She's asked me to please read her letter. So this is for my Aunt Diana. I'm reading this for my aunt. She had an accident that does not allow her to attend today. It's taken 5 years to finally get to confront you and express the love and admiration that all of Barry's family and friends have for him. Unfortunately, I cannot be there today, but my heart is with my niece, Leslie, who will be reading this. You stole from us a very happy, loving family man that would do anything for you. Barry was a Vietnam veteran that fought for his country. He fought for you, and I know that he fought you hard. Unfortunately, he lost that battle, and that I will never forgive you for. He never hurt you. Why did you have to take his life? I was truly blessed to have Barry as my brother, my best friend and confidant. He was the person I could go to with my problems, and he would never talk them out. Excuse me. I could go to my brother with my problems, and he would talk them out with me, and I knew that what I confided in him would never go any further. He was a man you could trust. I miss him every day. I miss the phone calls at night while he sat in traffic, the silly jokes, and that hearty laugh. He was my rock when I lost my son the day after Christmas in '88. He gave me the strength to go on with life. It gives me some relief knowing Barry is in heaven with my son now, and they're riding heaven's roads together. I will always be there to give love and support to his 3 children, Josh, Jeremy, and Leslie, and his 7 grandchildren, keeping his memory alive and continuing to celebrate his life with the family. Barry was always there to make sure our kids had time together growing up. Family was everything. He was a very giving son. He would schedule road trips together to travel to our mom's house to visit and make repairs, whether it was plumbing, painting, or furniture, whatever she needed. He loved helping her and spending time with her. I cannot forgive you. You've hurt so many people, your family, the Andersons, and mainly the Swansons. I would like to welcome you to hell. No more Christmas, Thanksgivings, or birthdays with loved ones. Knowing you will never walk the streets as a free man helps ease the pain. I miss and love you, Barry. Today is for you. And again, that's for my aunt. And this is for me. I lost my dad on September 17th. He wasn't just my dad. He was an amazing friend to so many, mainly his family. He was an adored papi to 5 beautiful grandbabies, and he's had 2 more that he never got to meet. My father was every girl's idea of an amazing guy. He was always there for me. He never raised his voice at me, and he always made sure his little girl was okay. I was truly Daddy's girl. What was stolen from us was a man who went through hell when he survived war. He was damaged and wounded emotionally. My father overcame his demons, and he committed himself to being the best dad and person he could be. He poured himself into us. Being a grandfather brought the best side to light. He never missed an opportunity to be with them. He adored them. And the kids were crazy about their papi. When something that horrific happens, it destroys you. All your loved ones are left with a completely different person. I was never the same. I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't be alone. I was either really emotional or really angry. I had 2 very little boys at just 2 and 3 years old who were devastated. And the only thing that they could come up with was that their puppy was no longer their friend because he stopped coming over. And that was so difficult to see them crying for their puppy because they felt responsible for it. We really did spend so much time with my dad. We had barbecues or we ate dinner together almost every weekend. He stopped by my house several times a week. We called him almost every morning so my kids could say hi and I love you. And as soon as my oldest boy could figure out how to make calls on his own, he would call my dad and my mom just to gibberish and say hi. My dad never missed an opportunity to tell you that he loved you and hug you. My husband, Mike Harvey, he already had his own struggles with PTSD from his tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. The act that you committed triggered a way in him that I never thought was possible, and he was consumed with grief. He felt like he should have been with my dad, and he could have saved him. Consumed with grief, Mike tried to kill himself. Thankfully, he wasn't successful because 2 weeks later, I found out I was having another baby. Mike's choice was a direct impact from the evil acts of this man. The fractures run so deep in my family, and I don't know how to repair them. I know they wouldn't exist if my dad was here. The waves of destruction from Brandon's choice to take my dad's life continue to drown us all. But by the grace of God, I still have my family. I have a beautiful little boy. His name is Bentley Dean, after his grandfather. He looks just like me and my dad. He has nothing but photos and memories of his papi. He was robbed of having the best grandfather ever. He'll never see where he got his beautiful blue eyes or his wavy blonde hair. And that's a painful daily reminder I struggle with. My brothers, my family, and I will always have that struggle because my dad should be here. 5 years later, our pieces are still not glued together because our glue was stolen away. Brandon, you stole a brother, a father, a best friend, and an amazing grandfather. A man who made it to his golden years, something he looked forward to and was incredibly excited about. A true family man to his core. My dad laid down his life without hesitation for men he didn't even know. Just alone, that shows what kind of man my dad was. But still, he was so much more. The very fact that you sit here and you have zero remorse, it's disgusting. You're an evil person. You're getting what we wanted all along. And I want to be clear that this isn't justice for Brandon. This is justice for my dad, Barry Swanson. Now you get to live your life in hell. You'll forever be haunted, both in your dreams and when you're awake. You'll live amongst monsters as evil as yourself. And I hope you're given the same respect and treatment that you gave my father, and your uncle. Brandon, you will never be a thought. You're forgotten about and left to rot. My dad, Barry, he will never be forgotten. He left a legacy and an impact on everyone lucky enough to have known him. I know I'll see my dad again. You, Brandon, will never see the light. You are well on your way to the pits of hell, exactly where you belong. I assure you the devil is preparing an extra special place just for you. If I can release any blame for you, I think both your mom and your brother should join you. I think at some point, the person who raised you carries responsibility on how you turned out and behaved. They sat back and they hid your demonic and evil behavior for personal gain. I think we all saw that during trial. And the Bible, the one that your mommy carried around, it's very clear about vengeance. God says vengeance is mine, and I trust God with all my heart, and that He'll keep His promise with that, and I wish you nothing but vengeance, Brandon. That's it for myself. My 8-year-old son, he was 3 when his poppy was stolen from him. He wanted to write a letter, and coming from an 8-year-old boy who doesn't understand why someone would kill his grandfather, he understood what somebody took him. He doesn't know what happened. He understood that the death penalty was an option. So I just want to keep that in mind, that this is coming from an 8-year-old. He says, "Hi, you idiot. You took my puppy. I've always wanted you dead. You're a washed up idiot. I hate you. You're a poop head. Bye, idiot. Enjoy the rest of your life in prison being beat up." This is from an 8-year-old little boy who can't even utter his poppy's name without sobbing and crying for 5 years. But writing this down, he actually giggled and said it made him feel better. That's it for myself.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
You could start, give us your name and first and last, whenever you're ready. Take your time.
My name is Donna Wright, Dutter. That's Donna Kay Wright Dutter. Like my son, I have something to say to you, Brandon. These are my babies here. This is my daughter, Leslie. That is my son, Jeremy. That is my daughter-in-law, Kristen. They have spoken very well and made me very proud. Barry would have been very proud of them, too. Just stand up and let their voices be heard for him and what this has cost our family, which has been dearly. What I will say to you, Brandon, the show is over. Your brief life to this point was painted out very clearly during your trial. What or who you were, I personally now understand that you were raised to be self-righteous, self-centered, spoiled, likely led to believe you had talent beyond reality. Perhaps your mother forced you in an attempt to live out her own pathetic, failed athletic attempts. Honestly, the jury, my family, and I know that we heard everything but the truth during your trial. We were forced to listen to the blame for your actions disgustingly cast by your mother, brother, and professional witnesses' opinions as a helpless mental illness. Let me say this. Many of us, including many jurors that have reached out to my children, who observed the trial, have decided that the stories told by your mother and brother were more than theatrical and true. Again, who knows, Brandon? But more importantly, who cares? You did what you did, period. Their performances offered nothing to your defense. What you are today is all that matters. You are nothing, Brandon. You are a number in a prison system, a convicted murderer. A complete failure in your short life is the full sum of your worth. Not ever did you become a man. You are just a male. The truth for our family, Brandon, while you were on your way to your full potential as a complete failure, you stole the life of an amazing man, a hero to his family and his country. Unlike you, Barry's life mattered to this world. He was a father. He was a grandfather. He was a brother and an uncle and a great friend to those who knew him and even to strangers on the street. You stole the kindness, the gentleness, the love and understanding, patience and tenderness that his loving hugs and words always brought to me, his children, his grandchildren, his sisters, his nephew, and his friends. Brandon, you stole the wisdom he had yet to share with our children and grandchildren. He was supposed to be here. Barry was to be their champion and beloved Poppy, who had all the answers. They needed this as they grew up and faced life and all its difficulties to come. His love in their lives mattered. They will never be able to replace his love. Nothing can or will ever make this up to them. Brandon, you have no clue how disgusting you are. Barry had so much more of his life left. He was a true man who was priceless to everyone he met. He was and is loved beyond the world by our children, our grandchildren, his family, and friends. Brandon, you are a coward and a cheat. You ruined your own life long before you walked into your parents' house that day and murdered your own father, your uncle, and a man you could have cared less about. We heard his voice as he fought you. We know he did his best to survive for his family. You broke into our family and you devastated us. Barry was strong and he lived through so much in his life, but he always came back no matter what. He could always laugh and smile again, no matter what. I will always have his kind words and support in my heart. We shared the most precious thing that this life has to offer, and that was a family. We were not perfect, but we always managed to find our way as a family and stay whole even in brokenness. Our children will never let the loving memories of their dad grow dim. They will never forget his life and what it meant to them. Our grandchildren will always smile at the sweet pictures of being in their papa's arms, feeling so deeply loved and cherished by him, because they were. Our oldest grandson and even our boys, my sons, they have his laugh. And they have his smile. And we will always see Barry's face in them. This trial is over. The looming and the dread of it is now over. You are gone from our lives forever. We will throw away every idea of you in the garbage once and for all. You are no more to us as of today. Your garbage life now is where it belongs, never to be thought of again. Your guilt will always be your truth. You did this, Brandon. To my family, to my sons, to my daughter, to my grandchildren, even my 8-year-old little Caleb, to my family, forgiveness belongs in our hearts and is only done to heal us. Our forgiveness in no way will ever offer you, this animal who came into our life, any less guilt. That's all, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Robin Lancaster.
My name is Robin Lancaster, ROBIN LANCASTER. I was once married to Ricky Anderson. I have known him since I was 15 years old. We had a son together. His name is Michael Anderson, and he is in court today. I also knew Michael Martin, because he was my former brother-in-law. Your Honor, Judge Swartz, first, I would like to thank you, Your Honor, for allowing me this opportunity to stand before you in the court to express my thoughts and feelings in regards to the death of Ricky Anderson, Michael Martin, and Barry Swanson. The pain our family feels, I feel no one would ever understand. These past 5 years after losing Rick have been the most difficult and deepest blows of my life. The night Brandon committed the brutal murders in 2015, when the Anderson siblings were in the hospital waiting for any news from Rick's condition, it was my husband Chris and I who desperately tried to contact Rick's youngest son, Chad, to let him know what had happened. It took us hours to find him because he was at a movie with his girlfriend. When I finally reached Chad on the phone, I asked Chad to meet me at his father's house. He kept calling me on the way to his father's house to find out what was going on. I just had to say, Chad, just please meet me at your father's house, and I will tell you. When Chad and his girlfriend arrived, I remember standing in front of him and gently putting my hand on his shoulders and told him that Brandon had killed 2 people and that his father was in the hospital on life support and would not survive. I held him as we both cried. We then drove Chad and his girlfriend to the hospital. We could hear Chad crying in the back seat with his girlfriend as she held him. Chad was devastated. We then kept calling Rick's ex-wife throughout the night to let her know what had happened and to see if she could contact Brooke, Rick's daughter, who was out of the country. Rick's wife eventually returned my call, and we started crying on the phone together. And shortly after, she showed up at the hospital. She notified her daughter by phone of what had happened. It took Brooke about 2 days to get home, as she was out of the country. Rick was kept on life support until Brooke could get home so that she could say her goodbyes to her father. When she arrived to the hospital, my son Michael held her hand as he walked her into the hospital room to say her goodbyes to her father. She was hysterically crying. My son Michael said he held his sister's hand as he brought her into the hospital room. His sister was crying so hysterically. Michael observed the nurses and doctors crying as they watched. Michael said that Brooke was in so much pain and shock that she couldn't even open her eyes to see her father. After the murders, it was up to my son Michael, my husband Chris, and I to put together a funeral for Ricky Anderson and Michael Martin. The funeral was to be held the next day, and at 9 p.m. the night before, we realized there was no church, no pastor, no music, no anything. We made many calls on my husband's part. We were able to put together a funeral that would be standing room only, attended by hundreds. I tried to find someone to do the eulogy, but my son Michael insisted that he do it. It was something that he really wanted to do for his beloved father and uncle. Anyone there will tell you that Michael did a fabulous job. He spoke from the heart and brought us all to tears. My husband, my son, and I put together that double funeral. We did it because we cared for Rick Anderson and Michael Martin deeply. Our son Michael Anderson and Ricky's 2 children from his first marriage, or his last marriage, have really struggled. I decided that I would do what I thought Rick would do if I were in the position and had lost my life that day. I called all of his creditors and explained to them the situation that had happened and was able to work out the financial details. I cried many tears to total strangers on the phone during those many hours trying to negotiate his debt. My husband came home one day after I had gotten off the phone with the IRS and he saw me crying hysterically. It was so difficult for me, and I know my son was struggling to run his own business and trying to keep his father's business going. So the responsibility was mine as Michael's mother and Rick's friend. Rick Anderson had an air conditioning company that still needed to be operated. Michael's brother Craig and I took turns answering and scheduling the service calls coming in for Rick's company. Michael would answer the calls until the grief was so deep that he told me he felt that he just wanted to throw the phone. I then took the calls for several months until the grief of explaining to his loyal customers of his death. I cried so many tears with the customers as I had to explain what had happened. It then got too difficult for me, and I then turned the phones over to Rick's brother Craig. I believe it too became difficult for Craig with Rick's customers and explaining what happened to Rick. This really took a toll on all of us, and eventually Craig had to give the phone to one of his employees to answer. It was just too difficult for the 3 of us to take these calls anymore. Rick was such a loved man in his community and with his customers. They were all devastated. Rick had more friends than anyone could ever imagine. We were left with an estate that was deeply in debt and needed to be settled. Michael and I spent hundreds and hundreds of hours over the years dealing with the details. I went through every single picture in Rick's home and made sure that each of Rick's children had memories of their father. Brooke and Chad, the two children from Rick's last marriage, wanted some of the pictures, but they did not want any of the pictures from their cousin Brandon in them. So I painstakingly went through every picture to make sure Brandon was not in any of them. Every picture with Brandon in it, I threw in the trash. All of Rick's children wanted no visual memory of their cousin Brandon. I did all of these things to help Rick's children out of love for them. As I stated before, I know he would have done the same for me. I worked countless hours in my son's company trying to assist him in any way that I could to take some of the pressure off of him. I did this for 5 years, during which I developed cancer twice. Less than a year after my last cancer surgery, Michael and I had his dad's house to get ready for sale. Basically, we had to go through 58 years of a person's life. Every single piece of paper, picture, and possession passed through my hands. The physical work that went into putting this house up for sale was almost more than we could imagine. I would go home each day with bruises on my body from lifting and going through each item. It was very physical and extremely emotional going through all of the belongings of a person's life that we cared very deeply for and deciding what to do with them. So many, many tears were cried by us. The damage that Brandon Martin caused that fateful day on September 17, 2015 has affected more than the 3 people he murdered with that baseball bat. My husband and I had to tell our eldest grandson, Travis, that his grandfather and his uncle were murdered by his cousin. Travis was 11 years old when this happened. He cried hysterically. Travis couldn't sleep without us during that time. Each night, we would hold him as he cried until he finally fell asleep. We immediately put Travis in therapy, and he spent months trying to deal with the grief. It took several months before I could even get my son to go to grief counseling with me. We cried so many tears during that time. My husband and I have spent thousands and thousands of dollars over the past 5 years with therapy costs for Travis and myself. At the time, Travis had 4 other siblings, all younger brothers ranging between 3 and 10. Each one of these innocent boys have woken many times in the middle of the night crying for the loss of their grandfather. While these 3 sweet boys have to feel this pain that will not go away, I honestly don't know if these young boys know the truth of how their grandfather, Rick, died, but they do know that he is in heaven. To this day, they still tell me that they miss Grandpa Rick. Rick loved these children with all their heart, and the grandkids felt it. The first time I attended one of the court trial readiness dates on my own, my husband took me to the train station in Fullerton. As I arrived at the Riverside train station and got off the train, I realized I was on my own, and I was very frightened. I saw a taxi waiting at the train station. I remember looking at the taxi and going back and forth in my head whether or not the taxi that I saw before my eyes, was this real? I didn't trust that it was. I then looked inside to see the man sitting in the driver's side of the taxi. Could I trust him to be who he portrayed himself to be? I stood there for several minutes, going back and forth in my head, wondering if I could trust this man. I eventually got in the taxi and was taken to the courthouse. After court, one of the Swanson family members drove me to the train station so that I could take the train home. I was dropped off and off, and the only person that I could see was a young woman across the tracks hanging posters dressed in a train employee uniform. I was so scared and uncomfortable standing at the station myself. I crossed the tracks to stay by her side until my train arrived. My therapist told me later that because of the brutal murders, I became hyper-vigilant. I suffered trauma. I didn't trust what I saw, and I couldn't trust what I saw to be real. I developed PTSD from these murders. Michael and I both struggle today. There is a time when my son admitted that he was actually suicidal after losing his father. I, too, have felt those same thoughts. The pain of going through each and everything that Rick owned was just so very painful that I just wanted to give up and to be with Rick in heaven. This year, I developed a seizure disorder that was so bad that I passed out while driving sitting at a stoplight. By the time I was taken to the hospital, my heartbeat was 28 beats a minute. My second seizure happened after I arrived home from meeting with the prosecution to go over the upcoming trial, and that, which was then delayed to COVID. My neurologist believes that these seizures have been brought on by the stress endured after Rick's death and the nervous of the upcoming testimony of the trial. I now am on seizure medicine. I remember a Zoom call with my neurologist, and I was in tears before I had to testify. I was afraid that I would have a seizure up on the stand. She assured me that the medicine would prevent it. Brandon Martin, you have caused so much pain in all of the victims' families. Our daughters say they were devastated when Rick and Michael Martin were murdered. Although they were not related to Rick and Michael, they were an extension of the Anderson family we shared with our son. Our daughters had such good memories of Rick Anderson and Michael Anderson. My daughters attended the funeral and were inconsolable at times. The healing is a journey for all of us. I believe it will take a lifetime for us to get over it. Barry Swanson and his family, I am so very sorry that all of you had to be part of Brandon's rage. Barry didn't deserve to die that way, and the family shouldn't have to go through the immense grief that they feel. In getting to know the Swanson family the past 5 years, I have heard so many wonderful memories of Barry, the man that they loved so dearly. I have also seen the immense grief that the Swanson family continue to have. I want you all to know that your father, Barry Swanson, died a hero that day. He could have run out that door to save himself from Brandon, but he didn't. He died trying to save two men that he hardly knew. Barry Swanson, you are a true hero. Finally, I would like to thank the Honorable Judge Swartz and the State of California for presiding over a fair and just trial. Your Honor, as I stand before you today, on behalf of Rick Anderson, Barry Swanson, and Michael Martin, I ask that you impose the maximum penalty possible, knowing this will not bring these innocent victims back, but I believe this will prevent another person from having to suffer the same way that these three innocent victims had to suffer, and will prevent other families from having to endure everything we have had and we will endure for the remainder of our lives. Thank you, Deputy District Attorney Kevin Beecham and Michael Kurtz. I will always remember your diligent work in bringing truth to light. To the victim's advocate, Carla Aguilar, I would like to sincerely thank you with gratitude and appreciation for always being there to answer our many questions throughout these past 5 years. To the jury, thank you for your thank you for your service. Thank you for showing up each and every day. I know that you have seen things that cannot be unseen. Thank you for arriving at a fair and just verdict. I am praying that you, too, experience healing for the terrible things that you had to witness. We will never forget the sacrifice that you have made to see that justice is done. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Christopher Lancaster, CHRISTOPHER, LANCASTER. The first statement I have is to be read on behalf of John and Connie Coates. They're in the Midwest. They couldn't come today. Your Honor, my wife Connie and I moved to Southern California from Illinois in 1980. Within a couple of months, we met Rick Anderson and his wife Robin. For 13 years, the four of us were the best of friends, going to dinner, the beach, birthday parties for our children, and everything else good friends do together. We were getting on our feet financially, so Rick would pay for our dinners sometimes, just so we could do things together. Rick was so much fun to be around. He always had a smile on his face and a big laugh. He was so generous with his time and money to everyone he met. Even after his divorce to Robin, he would help her with anything she needed. He became friends with her new husband, Chris Lancaster, welcoming him into his family and treating him like a brother. He was loyal to a fault and without a doubt the best friend I've ever had. After we moved back to Illinois in 1993, until his death, we would talk on the phone 3 or 4 times a year, or sometimes up to 2 hours. When my wife and I would make trips back to Southern California, we would always spend the day and an evening with him. When Rick died, we lost a great friend, someone we could rely on and share our future with. We are thankful for the past that we had together, but are sad that he has no future now. We feel he was robbed of 40 years of enjoying his children, grandchildren, friends, and the life he had before him. We also feel robbed of a great friend, and none of us will ever get that back. We would ask that you impose the maximum sentence on Brandon Martin for the valuable life he took from us, John and Connie Coates. And this is for me. So, at first glance, many might think that the new husband has no place making a victim impact statement. But as with most of life, it's more complex than first appearances. Rick and I were friends, not super close, but we were friends who had experienced serious life events together, so that we had learned to trust each other. We co-parented Michael for decades, celebrated birthdays and holidays together, rode motorcycles and shotguns in the desert together. Many years ago, he helped us through some financial challenges, just like John and Connie. When his marriage fell apart, we spent quite a bit of time bellied up to the bar. So it was not a small thing to see him alive, but not really alive in that hospital room. That night started with our son's phone call. There's blood everywhere. You need to come. That's how he said hello. Our boy, who we raised together, was simply shattered. Imagine getting that call from your child. We were in bed, so we threw on some clothes and raced to Corona, calling Melody from the car. That was our hard conversation. We were the ones who had to tell Melody something very bad had happened and that she needed to get home immediately, drop what you're doing, and start driving. Arriving on scene, we didn't initially know anything, so Robin, Melody, and I held each other and prayed. As the details came out, Robin and I became very concerned that Brandon, who was still on the run, might hunt down Rick's son, Chad. We called and called him, not knowing he was in a movie theater, and he was unable to take our calls. So we ran back to Yorba Linda to Rick's house, deciding not to go in on the chance that this monster was inside, ready to pounce. And we didn't know. There was no way to know who's been through this before. The police took it very seriously, lining the street with cars and eventually calling the all clear. Then Chad returned our call. Imagine that conversation with Rick's youngest child. We drove him out to the hospital. It was a very quiet drive. At the hospital, Chad was simply inconsolable. His mother could only hold him while he wailed. The next day, we had to tell our grandson, Michael's son Travis, who was 11. We didn't provide any details, but this is the age of the internet. He found out everything. At 11, Travis slept with us for many nights after that, crying himself to sleep. So began a years-long nightmare of trying to help my wife cope with her grief, while we both tried to help our son deal with his pain, while we all attempted to help Travis. This young boy has not prospered in school, largely due to an emotional dysregulation stemming from this trauma. It's been a very, very hard 5 years and counting. Regarding Michael Martin, it was a more simple relationship. We saw each other at family events. Anderson clan gatherings can be boisterous, and our girls sometimes felt adrift in the group. Michael would always take time to sit with them and make them feel part of the family. He and I like to spar about politics in a friendly way, not like you see on Facebook. It's the way it's supposed to be done. When Robin learned from census research that I have a black ancestor, Michael took great pleasure in that. He gave me a huge bear hug and called me his brother from another mother. Other than farewells that night, those were the last words I heard him say. We could use more men like that. Michael may have been close to death, but he should have been loved until his last breath, not contemptuously beaten to death by his own son. As for Barry Swanson, the only thing I know about him are that he was a fellow motorcyclist and that he gave his life in a heroic attempt to help my friends. What a giant of a man. I mean, how many of us here can say that we would charge into danger to save complete strangers? Barry was a better man than most here, and certainly better than Brandon Martin. For brutally murdering these three good and kind men, no punishment does justice. But whatever punishment can be meted out, Brandon Martin deserves every last shred. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, I was informed that there is that Jeremy Swanson has one more thing to add to his statement.
All right.
Apologize, I forgot one major message while I was being distracted by what I was saying. This morning, my dad's garage is still set up on my property, and I decided to go out there this morning and just spend a few minutes, and I'd like to channel the message from him just to something that my dad would want to say to you. And I realized that there was one thing that he carried with him while he was in Vietnam. At 18 years old, he volunteered to go to Vietnam. Ended up being a door gunner and surviving 5 helicopter crashes, made it through battle, lots of battles in life. And at 18 years old, he had this lighter made, and he had a message put on it. And I realized this morning this message was for you, Brandon. I'm going to read it word for word, because you went through his pockets, you stole his wallet, you stole our precious truck that we love to have so much fun in. You just took everything that man had, and you didn't know who he was. And I wish this would have been on him, but he had no clue that day that he was going into battle and that he was going to volunteer his life against an enemy like you. So this message is from my dad. It was meant to be delivered to you from his whole life, from the time he was 18 when he had this put onto this lighter. It says, if you took this lighter off my cold, dead body, Fuck you. That is what my dad wrote many years ago, not knowing where he would die and how he would die and how someone would actually steal things from him. I felt like that message needed to be read. I apologize for the foul language, but it is deserved and directed at you only. Thank you for letting me share that moment.
All right. Are there any other speakers?
Yes, we have one last one, Michael Anderson.
Before you start, sir, if you could remove the mask, and then don't forget to give us your first and last name spelled, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Michael Anderson, and the spelling is M-I-C-H-A-E-L, Anderson, A-N-D-E-R-S-E-N. I have 3 impact statements to read, all from Rick Anderson's children. The first one is from Chad Anderson, Rick's youngest son, my younger brother, and Brandon's cousin that he grew up with. My name is Chad Anderson, son of Rick Anderson. I want to start off by saying how much my father meant to me. I worked by his side every day for 3 years. He was my best friend who was unexpectedly ripped from my life, along with 2 others, in one night. I remember being in the hospital that night, seeing my father in the condition he was, his blue and purple head fully swelled up. I'll never get that image out of my head. The amount of grief and emotional pain this has caused in my life eats at me all the time. He never got to attend my wedding. He never got to see his grandchildren take her first steps. And I'll never be able to experience the things fathers and sons do ever again. No more camping trips or bonding with my dad. My second daughter is on her way, and he won't be able to hold her to know her. The fact that my daughters won't ever get to meet their grandpa hurts me the most. All because Brandon was released early from the hospital. It was this negligence that allowed for a tragedy like this to happen. It was this negligence that causes me emotional stress and anxiety every day. What I really want for the future is for something like this to never happen again to anyone or any family. No one should have their loved one's life taken away due to the tragic circumstances that unfortunately my father, my uncle Michael, and Barry Swanson fell victim to. This is from Brooke Anderson, Rick Anderson's only daughter, and my sister, and Brandon Martin's cousin. My name is Brooke Anderson, and I'm Rick Anderson's daughter. The events that occurred in September 2015 have immensely impacted my life. And I know, bear with me a second. And I know they will continue to affect me my entire life. Part of me hides my grief away where sometimes it doesn't even seem real. But when I'm not strong enough to suppress it anymore, and it comes seeping its way out into my present moments, it's unbearable. I have days where I can't find energy to get out of bed. All I feel is a heaviness that no one around me seems to understand. I still feel scared to share my pain, because when I do, I can't protect myself and hold it in. I suffer from extreme anxiety on a daily basis. It affects my relationships with myself and others. I fear that something bad will happen to loved ones when they don't text back right away, driving, traveling, etc. I fear that when I'm out in public, someone will come and hurt me, or my loved ones, because you never know what can happen. I can't watch certain scenes in movies or TV shows because it triggers what happened on September 17th. Sometimes I can't sleep at night, and images of what I think it was like come racing through my head. And picturing my dad hurting hurts me more than anything. Every September, a week leading up to my dad's death anniversary, I get anxiety, panic attacks, and depression. What happened to my dad, my Uncle Michael, and Mr. Swanson was something I would never have imagined, ever. Our families have been greatly impacted. We all lost someone we loved more than anything. It has affected relationships within our families as well. It broke up a once close family to some of us not even speaking anymore. It has created a lot of anger within our family, a lot of blame and a lot of hurts. I will never be able to talk to my father again, and sitting with that fact always brings tears to my eyes. Thank God dreams and memories exist because I get to see him there whenever I want. This one's for me. Truth. The definition. Can you hold on 1 second, please? I have the wrong one.
Yes.
Sorry, Your Honor.
That's all right.
Yeah. All right, I have it on my phone, Your Honor. Again, this one's from me. 1 Corinthians 13:4-6. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Truth. Truth is important in everything we do. Truth is needed in raising good children. Truth is needed in keeping oaths in a marriage. Truth is needed to serve and protect. Truth is needed in the medical field to save lives. Truth is needed in our court system. Truth is needed when we speak for the victims that are no longer here. For Barry Swanson, Michael Martin, and Ricky Anderson, I will always speak the truth. Even if I'm pressured, sued, or threatened, I will speak the truth. Anything other than the truth is a slap in the face of these three men, their lives, their courage, and their love for us. For those that have lied in this court, you are silencing the voices of three men that know the truth. As you lay your hand on the Bible and swear to God, truth is all that's needed. Proverbs 12:22. The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy. Brandon has always been Mommy's little boy, as a child, as an adult, and as a murderer that smashed in the heads of his dad, his uncle, and a complete stranger. Even with all the evidence of drugs, alcohol, violence, Mommy is still protecting her little baby. We know about the amounts of cocaine that Brandon bought for his party home in Yorba Linda, the same home that he destroyed with his raging parties. In fact, Melody asked my dad to help her clean up the house, repair broken toilets, smashed mirrors, and other damages to the rental home. The side yard was full of broken bottles, beer cans, broken items from the house, and other trash. My father helped with this and anything else Melody asked of him. He was a loyal brother. We know that Brandon asked his friends for heroin. We know that Brandon would yell insults at cops while driving down the road. We know that Brandon used racial slurs towards people with black skin. We know that Brandon had, on multiple occasions, attacked his parents when he didn't like their rules. Not because Sean had started a fight with him first, but because Brandon wasn't happy being told what to do. He was treated like a baby. The day Brandon was released from the hospital on the 17th of September, Melody even guilted my dad into looking for Brandon. I remember talking to my dad that day. He told me that Melody sent him and a couple other brothers a text, something along the lines of that it was their fault that her son was wandering the streets on the 17th and that they needed to find him. Did Melody leave work to go look for her own son? No, she didn't. Because she was blaming her brothers for not beating up her son 2 days before, even though it was my decision to call the police, instead of a group of us beating up her son, possibly killing him in the process. I made that decision, and then I sent Melody and my mom to go get pizza for us, while she thought we were beating up her baby boy, Brandon, to teach him a lesson. She was mad when she found out that her plan had been changed. So Melody guilted her brothers. Let me say that again. So Melody guilted her brothers to find her son, while her and I looked for a drug rehab for Brandon to go to. I was asked to check with my connections at the Salvation Army, and she would check with some places across the country. It was known by all that her baby Brandon was messed up on drugs. My dad told me over the phone how Melody texted him with a guilty message. I asked my dad if he was going to look for Brandon. He said no, that he didn't want him in his truck with him alone if he did find him, because he was afraid of Brandon. My father, who was fearless, was afraid of Melody's little baby. 2 days before, on September 15th, I was asked by my cousin Sean to come beat up Brandon. That his mom wanted it to happen. This was confirmed by Melody when I arrived that evening at their home in Corona. I then made the decision to call the police instead. That was the best thing to do in the situation. To call the local authorities that are responsible to protect us. When the police arrived, they never asked to see Melody's wounds on her neck from being strangled by her baby. They never asked her what she wanted. They never asked her what her baby Brandon did to her. Instead, a police officer that had prior experience with Brandon decided to take him to the government hospital. I argued with the officer that Brandon was a danger to others and that he is going to kill someone. That he needed to do a restraining order or an emergency protective order, otherwise known as an EPO. My Uncle Michael was elderly, disabled, and being abused and attacked by Brandon. Melody was not happy with the police being called because, as she said, it would ruin Brandon's baseball career. I then told Melody that Brandon was going to kill someone, I could see it in his eyes. I told her to protect Uncle Michael and to get an alarm system. The next day, Melody called me and said that she found a flyer for ADT alarm and camera installation. She said that it was a sign that she needed to do it and that she doesn't want Brandon back because of his violent behavior and his drug use. Melody never mentioned to me or the family about schizophrenia. I know that if her little baby had been diagnosed with something, that she would tell the family so we could get him help. Instead, she wanted us to teach him a lesson by beating him up and put Brandon in a drug rehab with anger counseling. I had a note here for me to play a voicemail for the court, but I will read it instead. I have the recording if the court needs it for the record. It's a voicemail Melody Martin left my mother, Robin Lancaster, the day of the murder, September 17th, 2015. This is per word, quoted per words of Melody Martin. Hey Robin, it's Melody. I was wondering if I can get your help. If you had some time to make some phone calls to try and find a rehab place for Brandon, give me a call. And then her phone number. They're going to release him anytime right now. Okay, bye. That was a voicemail Melody Martin left my mother hours before the murder. A few days after the murder, Melody sent me a text message telling me not to answer any more questions from the police or the district attorney's investigators. Then a day or two after that, Melody and I were at my dad's house. She again told me not to help the police or district attorney. I asked her why. Her response was because she didn't want her little baby being a victim of the system. All of this could have and should have been prevented. I'm very lucky that my dad was not dead when I got to the house on September 17th. I spent the next 2 days with him in the hospital as he passed away. As he laid there in the hospital bed with his head 3 times the size from the swelling, I was able to hold his hand. All I could think of was him getting better and surviving. I was asked to sign a do not resuscitate paper and decide what to do with his organs. As hard as that was, it could have been worse. If my dad were dead when I arrived at the house, I wouldn't have been by his side. Instead, I would have been hunting for a monster. I would have found Brandon, and I would have taken his life. It would be me on trial for murder. But God has different plans for me. Now I can be a father to my children and a voice of truth for the 3 men that aren't here today. I understand God's plan for me, and I'm committed to doing right by them. 3 families and the court have been lied to. The jury that had to make the biggest decision of their lives have been lied to. Even though Barry Swanson was a hero, his family has been lied to. Michael Martin's family has been lied to by their own family. Rick Anderson's family has been lied to even after he followed his sister's commands. Barry Swanson is my hero, a war veteran that chose to do the right thing over life itself. He defended his brothers in war, and he defended his brothers on September 17, 2015. Brothers that he just met, exchanged cigars with, and died trying to protect. I will never forget you or for your courage in protecting others. I wish I had met Barry Swanson. We could have exchanged war stories over some beers. It will be many years before we meet. Until then, I will honor him and his family. Barry and his family deserve the truth. He was hired to protect our family. He died protecting our family. He deserves the truth, not some lies trying to protect some racist mama's boy that murdered him with a baseball bat. My uncle Michael Martin was a second father to me. He was there for me when I made mistakes and when I needed help. He always put a smile on your face and warmed your heart. Even though he wasn't blood, he was my family. I chose to carry his casket instead of my own father during the funeral. I wanted him to know that I loved him, like a son loves his father. Michael was one of my greatest uncles, my favorite uncles, a great husband and a loving father. He never should have been in that situation. Numerous times he had been put in danger around Brandon. Wheelchair bound and dying, he was left alone with Brandon. He didn't deserve this, and those that allowed it have blood on their hands. Brandon doesn't deserve a father like Michael Martin, but he still hated his father for being black. His anger for his father would eventually build up to the point of murder. My uncle sat there without the strength to defend himself as his own son grabbed a baseball bat, smashed in his skull, and then dragged his body to the garage for Melly to find him. My uncle deserves the truth. Anything else would break his heart. My father, Rick Anderson, was a great man. He was honest, loyal, and a friend to all. He loved his children and grandchildren with all his heart. He always wanted the best for them and would break his body at work to make sure we were taken care of. He was a free man that could do whatever he wanted. He was fearless. He was strong. He was all that a son could ask for. Sometimes there was tough love, but without tough love, you create monsters out of your children. If anyone else that he knew was murdered, family or friend, he would be there for them. He would speak the truth for them. On September 17th, my father took my place. I was going to make sure my Uncle Michael and the rest of my family were safe, as Brandon was wrongfully being released from the hospital. Right before I left my house to go, my dad on the phone told me to stay home with my children and that he would go in my place. We stayed in contact and we talked about Brandon's drug use, that Melody and I were trying to find a drug hab for Brandon, and how screwed up the week was. My dad told me that he tried calling the doctor at the hospital to tell her not to release Brandon. This was confirmed when I read his call history and found her information written on a notepad in his truck. He tried protecting the family from Brandon. We talked minutes after Brandon arrived at the house. Dad told me what was said between him and Brandon, and then my dad told me that he had to go and that he would call me right back. That was the last time that I talked to my dad. My dad supported his sister Melody until the day he died. My dad died because he supported his sister Melody. My dad supported Brandon and wanted the best for him in his baseball career and in his life. Brandon returned the favor by smashing his head in with a baseball bat. My father deserves the truth. That's how he raised me, tell the truth. I want to thank the Corona police officers that put their lives in danger to catch this monster, the police dog that took a bite out of crime, the court for your service to our community, the deputies that keep me from doing something in the courtroom, and the jury that made big decisions amongst lies. Hold your heads high and have no regrets. To the district attorney staff, thank you. You handled this perfectly, and I will never forget that you helped the truth come out. My father, my uncle, and my hero had their voices heard because of you. The truth will set us free. If I am to be the voice of these men, then so be it. I'm happy to spend the rest of my life being their voice. They have a lot to say, and I'm just getting started. I'd like to end by telling you about what my uncle told me that I'll never forget. Something that he also told my mother, Robin Lancaster, 2 days before he died. When Uncle Michael told me, it was just before the murders. We were at my dad's house doing a family get-together. My Uncle Michael and I were in the backyard sitting by the fireplace. Out of nowhere, he started to cry. I asked my Uncle Michael what was wrong, because the tears were pouring out of his eyes. After what seemed like an eternity, he replied, "My son Brandon told me that I'm not his father because he could never be the son of a nigger." Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak on behalf of victims? Is there anyone that wishes to speak on behalf of Mr. Martin or Mr. Martin? Okay. Need a break? All right, we're going to need to take a break for the court reporter, so we'll come back at 20 after 11.
Very good.